prove otherwise. This underscores the importance of why Hamas must be disarmed and Gaza demilitarized, as outlined in the 20-point plan. Now, violations by Hamas continued throughout the weekend. On Friday, 15 terrorists emerged from a tunnel at two different locations in eastern Rafah, where our IDF forces were operating to dismantle remaining underground terror infrastructure there. Now, at that time on Friday, the IDF apprehended 5 of the terrorists and eliminated 6 of them. After 24 hours of locating the remaining terrorists that emerged from that tunnel who were hiding out in Rafah, all 17 terrorists who attempted to flee the underground terror infrastructure were accounted for, with 11 terrorists eliminated and 6 terrorists apprehended and transferred for further questioning. Now, on Saturday, an armed terrorist crossed into the IDF's yellow line with a vehicle and situated himself on a humanitarian road where aid enters southern Gaza. The terrorist started firing at IDF soldiers deployed in the nearby area. The incident was caught on an IDF drone and can be seen as clear as day. A terrorist with a hoodie on is located on this humanitarian road outside of a parked vehicle, and he begins shooting in the direction of where our soldiers are located. Soon after, the soldiers eliminated that terrorist. This is an example of a blatant violation of the ceasefire agreement, and in response, the IDF began striking Hamas terror targets inside of Gaza. Now, as a result, Israel eliminated 5 senior Hamas terrorists, including the head of supply in Hamas's production headquarters. This person was a central source of knowledge in the organization's supply and production systems. Now, during the war, he also operated to transfer weapons from Hamas's headquarters to battalion and field commanders for use against IDF forces. Israel will not accept violations by Hamas under the ceasefire framework, and our IDF forces will continue to remain deployed in the Gaza Strip in accordance with the agreement. Israel will not rest until all of our hostages are home, the remaining 3 hostages, as they should be returned home for proper burial by now. The mediating countries must insist on the full execution of the framework and hold Hamas to its commitments to return all of our hostages. As the Prime Minister said at the beginning of the government meeting this morning, since the ceasefire started, Hamas has not stopped violating the ceasefire, and Israel is responding accordingly. After these repeated violations, Israel thwarted these attempts to harm our soldiers with great force. Prime Minister Netanyahu has made it abundantly clear. Israel operates without depending on anyone, and immediate actions to thwart attacks are carried out automatically by the IDF. Israel decided without dependence on any external party on how to defend itself, remove threats, and repel attacks. Israel is responsible for its own security, and the Prime Minister says it is of utmost importance for Israel to secure all of its borders, and that's why Israel is continuing to strike terrorism on several fronts. I'll now take a few questions.
This is Gaza, and here, at the northern edge, lies a city Hamas turned into one of its most fortified terrorist strongholds, Bet Hanun, a dense urban area that was transformed into a hub for terror activity. Each one of these yellow points marks Hamas infrastructure embedded within the civilian population. One of these locations is an UNRWA elementary school, where IDF intelligence uncovered one of the clearest examples of Hamas's tactics. A children's school used as cover for their terror activities. Here we can see armed Hamas terrorists carrying concealed weapons past children's drawings on the walls. This is how Hamas operates, using a school meant for learning for terror. Inside the classroom, we see the terrorists gather their weapons and move them toward a window that leads to a courtyard, just meters from the classroom, where a tunnel shaft is hidden, a passageway built to move terrorists and weapons under the cover of a civilian building. This is the structure beneath that very spot, a vertical shaft dropping straight underground, connecting to a reinforced tunnel carved beneath the school. These violet markings, beneath homes, schools, and civilians, show how many tunnel shafts have been discovered across Beit Hanun. IDF troops located and exposed these shafts during the ground operation, every one of them connected to a vast underground network. These red lines reveal the vast underground tunnel network used to move terrorists, store weapons, and launch attacks toward Israel. Every tunnel is a reminder that Hamas invests in war, not in the people of Gaza. Across the city, our troops also uncovered hundreds of explosive devices. These explosives were deliberately placed in civilian areas to turn entire neighborhoods into combat zones. And finally, these dots mark sites where terror outposts and infrastructure sites were hidden among houses and aimed directly at Israeli communities. This is Beit Hanun as the IDF found it, a city saturated with terror infrastructure, above ground and below it. This is not defense. This is Hamas's deliberate exploitation of civilians. The IDF will continue uncovering and dismantling these threats in accordance with the ceasefire agreement.
IDF confirmed that 17 Hamas terrorists were captured and killed as the terror group continues breaching the ceasefire agreement. According to the IDF, after a 24-hour pursuit, troops apprehended 6 terrorists and later eliminated 11 terrorists who attempted to flee from a Hamas tunnel in an IDF-held area in the southern Gaza Strip. The Hamas terrorists who have been trapped underground in tunnels near Rafah attempted to escape and cross the yellow line into the Hamas-controlled area, but were quickly identified by the IDF and eliminated. In a combined operation with Air Force strikes and ground troops of the Nahal Brigade, the IDF says one of the eliminated terrorists was a senior Hamas chief, known as Allah Hadidi, the head of Hamas weapons manufacturing. The Prime Minister's office called the event yet another blatant ceasefire violation, adding that Israel has fully honored the ceasefire and Hamas has not. And in a separate ceasefire violation in Gaza, an armed terrorist crossed the yellow line in a jeep, ambushing the humanitarian corridor to open fire at troops. The IDF released a video that is on your screen right now of the quick response of soldiers on the ground who eliminated the terrorist with gunfire. The government reiterated that Hamas must complete the return of the remaining hostages, disarm, and allow for Gaza's demilitarization. Meanwhile, Hamas is responding to recent reports denying that it informed mediators that they wish to end the fragile ceasefire. A Hamas spokesperson refuted the claims, insisting that it's Israel that is violating the ceasefire and not the terror group. And as the efforts to maintain the ceasefire in Gaza continue, the northern front escalates, with renewed strikes on Hezbollah infrastructure that are stationed near the border with Israel. Over the weekend, the IDF confirmed striking deep in the Bekaa Valley as Hezbollah continues attempts to rearm in southern Lebanon. According to the IDF, airstrikes eliminated 2 Hezbollah operatives, in addition to multiple rocket launchers recently deployed inside a Hezbollah military compound. The site was used to store weapons to attack Israel in yet another violation of the US-backed ceasefire. And believe it or not, another front is developing. The IDF and Shin Bet are reporting one of the largest and most intensive counterterrorism operation in Judea and Samaria in recent months, with more than 60 wanted suspects arrested, 18 of which were Hamas operatives. In a joint operation including the Shin Bet, Border Police, Yamam Forces, the Menashe and Regional Samaria Brigades, terror hotspots were raided, multiple terrorists were arrested or eliminated, weapons were seized, and multiple terror cells were dismantled. This follows recent escalations of violence in Judea and Samaria, as Israeli settlers have been using arson in recent weeks against Palestinians in response to deadly terror attacks that have killed and injured multiple Israelis in the last few months. And joining me now to discuss,
in short, known as UNRWA. In Gaza, it's supposed to help civilians. Instead, it's been exploited by Hamas. Take Mohammed Ibrahim Agafur. One UNRWA document lists him as an employee. Another lists him as a Hamas terrorist. Or what about Ashraf Maad al-Madoun? UNRWA calls him an employee while Hamas calls him a fighter. And they're not alone. Out of roughly 12,500 UNRWA employees in Gaza, at least 1,400 are members of Hamas or other terrorist organizations. That's 12% of the entire workforce. UNRWA schools, meant for education, are instead used by Hamas for terror, with tunnels dug under classrooms and rocket launchers placed beside playgrounds. And on October 7th, UNRWA staff took part in the massacre. 18 employees were identified inside Israel during the attack, involved in killings, kidnappings, and operational support to Hamas. One of them, Faisal al-Musalem al-Nami, an UNRWA social worker, was seen on CCTV inside Kibbutz Be'eri, loading the body of a murdered Israeli into a car. Another, Mohammed Abu Itiwi, employed by UNRWA, led the attack on Route 232 that left 16 dead and 4 kidnapped. Humanitarian workers don't terrorize or massacre civilians, but Hamas did, through UNRWA. And even after Israel exposed the evidence, the UN refused to investigate. So ask yourself, can an organization that's so deeply compromised truly serve the people it claims to protect? How much longer will the world turn a blind eye to the exploitation of aid for terror?